Keeble also alongside on the penultimate row of the grid, and Kenny Press, and then those that were in strife in the first race, Colin Martin. As we get underway, lights out, great start by Dave Newsham. Rob Butler slots in behind him as they make the run towards paddock. Max Bird is on his toes on the inside line. Dave Newsham it is then who hits the front and instantly tries to get on with the job here and break away from the opposition. Great battles going on for third. There's mayhem in the background as well. Max Goff making progress up on the inside line there. Is he going to be able to go through and take more ground? Let's see as they come down towards Graham Hill Bend for the first time. Dave Newsham it is, though, who has hit the front.
Well, David, while you've been following the leaders, I've been watching the leaders from the previous race, if that makes sense. And Dave Marshall had got himself ahead of Jack Keithley, got a car between himself and Mike Epps. But Keithley, I think, is fighting back now as they go towards Surtees for the first time, as they tentatively turn their way now into the right-hand clearways. Those rear tyres still not really up to temperature. They're slowing the pace, though, because the safety car has been deployed. I thought that was more tentative than even on cold tyres they should be going. Safety car out then, perhaps not a surprise, I think, on the first lap of a reverse grid race. We've had a couple of cars that haven't made it round.
Okay, so the safety car deployed, which is another feature of this series, the MSL FastR Touring Car eSeries with PowerMax Racing, powered by VRRC. You have safety cars in the real world, you get them in the virtual world as well, so everybody has to slow right down. Safety car is on track, and that's because of the incidents on the opening lap of the race. There is the safety car going through, and Dave Newsham, having tried to build a gap, now finds himself coming under attack on that restart with Rob Butler up behind him. Max Goff, who is shown on that graphic as having the same number as Rob Butler, but he's actually running as 63, Max Goff. Then you've got Robbie Stableford fourth ahead of Max Bird, and then Isaac Smith next up. So through they will turn, and of course all these laps counting within the 20 minutes then. So safety car through, you can see the drivers trying to maintain tyre warmth and tyre pressures as they come across the line. Dave Newsham, no stranger to this sort of restart from his days in Legends, from being a Clio Cup champion and of course in the BTCC. I think he's still going to be able to make a good restart and try and build that gap once more when we go racing, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a real pro, is Dave Newsham, isn't he? As you say, years and years of experience, and he, I think, will be feeling quite confident from here. His problem in the first race, really, was that he couldn't keep himself out of trouble, but now that he's escaped the midfield melee, he's got some clean air, he'll want to build that gap as quickly as he can before some of the really quick drivers come through. I think if you give Dave Newsham clear track and no pressure from behind, he is going to be difficult to catch.
A popular driver, I think. That's why he attracted all the attention in the first race. But we're about to go green once more, are we? Because the safety car should peel in this time. Everybody is bunched up, ready for the restart. So can Newsham then get the jump once more over Rob Butler as they come across the timing line? We go racing once more, then up towards paddock. Those two getting away a little bit from Max Goff third. Stableford is fourth. Bird and Smith fifth and sixth. What about Newsham Jr.? He has got work to do as well. In fact, he's fallen a long, long way back, has he not? But up the hill goes Dave Newsham, the race leader, and trying to build that gap as through goes Jordan Brennan in 8th spot ahead of Callum Newsham. Their race one battle is continuing here with Epps still stuck in 12th place.
Yeah, Mike Epps 12th, and Dave Marshall did get the best of Jack Keithley, so Marshall's gained a position from his starting place, whereas Epps didn't. If that is the kind of early championship battle, that could prove to be significant. Up to the end of the lap they go. Max Bird hops over the curb, loses the rear of the car, and Isaac Smith sees a chance to get the Peugeot up the inside. This is for 5th position, and Bird could end up losing more than one place here because it's a real freight train of cars behind him, and he is on the wrong side of the road. He's on the outside into Paddock Hill Bend. On the inside is Isaac Smith. Smith goes through, Senna Proctor tries to follow him. The Hondas lean on each other, so close to making contact. They do on the exit make a bit of wheel-to-wheel contact, and it looks as though, how did that one settle out? Yeah, Proctor went through, Jack Brennan goes up the inside and runs wide. It is not going well for Max Bird.
You reckon that's settled, do you? Okay. Right, so Jordan Brennan up, Callum Newsham up as well. You're right, Bird down to 9th, but it's all going to kick off again, I fear, before the end of the lap, because Newsham is once again looking for a way past Jordan Brennan, just as he was at the end of the opening race. On the tail of Max Bird, though, now is the hard-charging Dave Marshall. Works all sideways there with a little bit of an assist, goes Newsham. Marshall to the outside line here, tries to make his move against Max Bird. He's up alongside him. Mike Epps might be able to take full advantage of this. Yes, look, he gets a mega toe. He's gone up alongside one. He might get past 2, maybe even 3 in one go here. It might all come to naught. Never mind that, because they go through paddock. Some go wide. Epps does gain ground, and out of all of that, poor old Max Bird even wider, drops even further down the pecking order.
Well, poor old Max Bird, but poor old Dave Marshall as well. He'll be spitting feathers after that. He was the one trying to make a move, and he's ended up dropping behind Mike Epps, behind Jack Keithley, who he'd worked so hard to better in the earlier laps, and he's back down to 11th place now. But yeah, you're right, Max Bird lost more places, but I think Dave Marshall might be the most frustrated out of that little group for whatever reason. Just wasn't quite able to come out of that as strongly as he'd have hoped. Senna Proctor we're following now in 6th position, comes out of the final corner, only half a second behind Isaac Smith, whilst at the head of the field, Dave Newsham. Did I confidently predict that Dave Newsham would be able to get away here from Rob Butler? I take that back now. Rob is absolutely staying with him, just 0.4 of a second lead margin.
Yeah, Rob Butler reminding people, in a sense, what a wasted talent he was, because it was an accident that rather stopped his career as a real-world driver. He does a lot of driver coaching these days. Isaac Smith, who's on this grid, is one of the drivers he coaches, but Rob is no mean peddler. So he's there chasing after Dave Newsham, one of the star names within the championship, admittedly, but Rob going after him and proving he's just as good. The gap between them is a 1/5 of a second as number 2, Ryan Elliott, goes through shot down in 13th place. Remember, points for the top 15. The cut-off there at the moment being Charlie Oliver. Isaac Smith up into 4th place last time around at the expense of Stapleford. Newsham leading, but being caught again by Butler. He's quicker that lap through. So just as we have Epps and Marshall running nose to tail for race 1, we've got the top 2 in race 2. Absolutely tied together.
Yeah, Rob Butler, one of the other drivers that he's coached is Reece Barr. He coached him through Mini Challenge and through TCR Europe. So he knows this TCR machinery pretty well, does Rob. Knows how to get the best out of it, and he's definitely sticking with Dave Newsham. The pair of them, though, getting away from everybody else who are trying to be 3rd place, aren't they? Max Goff, Isaac Smith, Robbie Stapleford, Senna Proctor, they're all nose to tail. We're right on board now with Smith. It was getting a bit touchy-feely there, wasn't it, through clear ways, as he almost got into the back of Max Goff, and the orange Cupra of Stapleford starts to fill his mirrors as well. Good run through Clark Curve, though, and Isaac Smith pulls to the outside, tries to sell the dummy, goes back to the inside, the Peugeot is there, there's going to be contact, and Isaac Smith head first into the barriers. That was one move too many, I think, in what is already a bumpy braking zone, and sadly, Isaac ends up coming off the worst from that, drops outside of the top 10.
He does indeed, way down the order, and still falling as he tries to rejoin. Now, in the meantime, there, look, Senna Proctor all over the back of Robbie Stapleford now for the last place on the notional podium. So it is just the Cupra Leon hanging onto position, but Senna Proctor, winner here in real-world touring cars for Power Max Racing. Then the Astra right there behind him. 5th is Jordan Brennan. Callum Newsham is 6th. Mike Epps is up to 7th. Jack Keithley is up to 9th, Dave Marshall 10th. So Epps, bit by bit, just getting on with the job, isn't he? Edging forward, letting other people, in a sense, do the hard work for him by having their own problems.
And that's the art of it, isn't it? Here he is, though, actually proving you wrong, making something happen himself, or trying to. Has a big nibble at the right rear corner of Callum Newsham's Hyundai, but Callum fends him off for now, and then behind him, Max Goff and Jack Keithley getting up close and personal into the braking zone as well. But there is a real art, I think, to not only surviving these reverse grid races, but thriving in them as well. If you are the aggressor, you're the one that's really trying to force the issue, you can very often come off with damage or off the road altogether, whereas Mike seems to, as you said, be letting other people open the door, and he just follows them through. That's exactly what happened with that moment with Dave Marshall earlier on, wasn't it? Dave was the one trying to gain progress, and it was Epps that benefited. So savvy driving here from Epps, and 7th place already, and likely, I think, to move further forward.
We've talked about, have we not, of course, real-world feeling, sim-world feeling behind the wheel of one of these virtual cars, but there's also racecraft, whether it's real-world or virtual, and that has to be factored in as well. And there are some drivers with clearly excellent racecraft. Now, Jack Keithley has gained a place as well, and so too has Dave Marshall now. So Max Goff from the 2nd row of the grid, falling back in the pack. Where's Epps up to? 7th. Next target, Newsham, then Brennan. And Mike Epps still with half of the timed element of the race and a bit more to go. Could we get Mike Epps onto the podium before the end? The way he's going and his lap times suggest that might just be a possibility. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely, because of course the further up the order he gets, he's then battling with people that were further behind him in the race. So in other words, he should have a bigger pace advantage over maybe some of the drivers inside the top 3 or 4 than the people he's already overtaken. So he's kind of done the hard work now. Now he's going to try and pick off the rest. Dave Newsham just about got into Druids Corner ahead of Rob Butler, but Butler is asking all the right questions, isn't he, of Dave here? And with still over half the race to go, you do wonder whether Dave's going to be able to keep batting back suitable replies to those questions, because Butler is looking aggressive, and increasingly so. Will he get frustrated and go for a rash move, though? That may be something that we watch out for in the second half of the race. He'll only be prepared to sit behind that home bike for so long.
Yeah, you're right. He's asking the right questions. Dave Newsham's got the right answers, though. For the moment, half the race still to go. 10 minutes on the clock then. The leaders go by that time around. Dave Newsham slightly the quicker. Mike Epps up into 6th. He's about to go 5th. Yes, on the inside line there. Through he goes then. He is attacking. Callum Newsham secures 6th place. Jordan Brennan the next target. Mike Epps then into the top 6. He's done it. He's got himself that far. So looking oh so good this for Mike Epps. Newsham, Butler, Stapleton, Proctor, Brennan, Epps, the order. Newsham is down to 7th, Keithley 8th, Marshall is 9th. Maxwell rounding out the top 10 as way out wide goes Callum Newsham. That's going to put him in further jeopardy with Jack Keithley out behind him. And Charlie Oliver is under attack as well. Isaac Smith way off the road there, right round the outside, rally cross style.
Oh, and that means that the elbows are out again into Surtees. He loses that place. Isaac Smith's race rather falling apart, and that was, well, interesting. Isaac tried to retaliate, I think, and at the same time, another car, another one of the Peugeots tried to go up the inside. Miles Lacey, that might have been. 3 into 1 didn't go, and Isaac Smith ends up losing even more positions. Back with Jack Keithley, and he's also got past Callum Newsham, hasn't he? So Callum Newsham slipping backwards here, and he brings through with him Dave Marshall, who is now starting to steadily pick them off himself as well. So Epps, Marshall and Keithley, who were the top 3 from the earlier race, are now together again on the timing screen at least, but Epps does have that handy 1.6 second cushion over Keithley and Marshall. Epps, though, now is catching Brennan, isn't he? So if he doesn't get past Brennan quickly, that might just stymie his pace a little bit and allow Keithley and Marshall to close in.
Jack Keithley adapting to front-wheel drive virtual touring cars very effectively. The Williams eSports driver, and as I said before, qualifying got underway. He's a big touring car fan, so loving being up against real-world touring car drivers. But right now he's under attack because Dave Marshall is right on his tail. Further back there, 11th now, Max Bird. He should be able to get himself into the top 10, I would have thought, before the end of the race. Meantime, lead gap hovers around the 0.3 of a second margin. It's still Dave Newsham ahead of Ron Butler. And Dave Newsham, for the moment, doing everything absolutely right, keeping Butler at bay as they now round Clark Curve up towards the timing line. Max Bird has just broken into the top 10, but again, it's so similar a situation, this, is it not, to what we had in race 1, because although they are close, Dave Newsham has just about got a small gap, enough to prevent Butler from having a real do-or-die move up the inside at the moment.
Yeah, the difference here, though, from the situation we had between Epps and Marshall in race 1 is that these are 2 different cars, the Hyundai against the Peugeot, rather than a pair of French cars going against each other, as we had in race 1. So it might be that Butler can use his car's advantage, which is probably through the slower corners, which is after all where all the overtaking is done, to find a way through. Having said that, he just dropped back on the first half of this lap, had a bit of a mistake at Graham Hill Bend, and that means that he's got work to do again to close back in. I did spot, though, in the background behind these 2 that it's starting to get very interesting for 3rd place. Look at that, 4 cars together now. Robbie Stapleford still has Senna Proctor and Jordan Brennan on his tail, but they've now been joined by the rapid Mike Epps. So 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, I think, is about to become the battle to watch.
Yeah, Mike Epps is benefiting, or had been, from clear air. Now he's got himself in some traffic that's going to affect things a little bit, but Mike Epps is absolutely charging, and we know he's a class act in touring cars, real or virtual. He comes downhill. The musician, as well as very rapid racing driver, the British New Zealander, comes onto Cooper Straight, now looking for a way up past Jordan Brennan, and of course here he's got drivers who are all busy squabbling amongst themselves, so they only have to make a tiny error and the door is open. If Epps times this right, I still think the podium beckons for him, with 6 minutes and change plus a lap still to go. Look to the bottom right, you'll see the leaders come by. Dave Newsham ahead, although that time Ron Butler slightly the quicker in terms of the overall lap time. Epps, though, getting really busy now.
Yeah, he has a look there, forcing a mistake out of Jordan Brennan. Brennan is watching his mirrors now more than he's looking out of the windshield, and there is the result. The mistake at Paddock means he's slow up the hill, and Epps makes it look remarkably easy, just launches up the inside. However, the gap between the 6th place car, which was Epps a second ago, it's now Brennan, and Jack Keithley in 7th, has come down by 0.4 of a second in the last lap. So this squabbling is holding these cars up. Keithley and Marshall are getting closer, but Epps is continuing to move forward. He's not staying behind other drivers for long enough for it to really affect him. So, yeah, this forward progress doesn't show any signs of stopping. And I think this Bikept podium that you suggested might be on the cards about 10 minutes ago is now looking more and more likely.
Indeed, because not only is he in fifth, but he's there almost within touching distance of Senna Proctor for fourth, who is right on the back of Robbie Stapleford for third. So Epps then, who has done everything right thus far, pole, race win, and he's looking as though another podium might well be going his way. Now, that said, we've only got 5 minutes plus a lap to go. Dave Newsham has edged away slightly from Rob Butler. 4:10 it was, 3:10 it comes to at the next timing point. But Dave Newsham still just about in charge. Callum Newsham has dropped to ninth in the meantime. There, Senna Proctor in fourth. He is now in this invidious position. He's got to attack, but he's also got to defend. And if he starts to defend, that's going to release Robbie Stapleford and might actually protect him in that third position, of course.
Yes, for 12th place, by the way, it is Ryan Elliott who has it, but behind him, Craig Keeble wants it. He muscles his way up the inside of Martin Richards, and he's now on the tail of the 12th place car as we cut back to the third place squabble. I don't know how the director is keeping up with all this, because I can tell you, looking at the timing screen, there are these little pockets of activity up and down the order, groups of 3 or 4 drivers that just won't leave each other alone. There's so much racing going on, and it's what, of course, makes touring car racing such a popular discipline, because this is fairly normal, really. Close quarters racing, lots of overtaking. How much more overtaking can Mike Epps do, though? Well, the next overtake is possibly going to be one of the harder overtakes he's had to make all race, because Senna Proctor, like Mike Epps, has real-world touring car experience at the very highest level in the UK, and he's already, moving to defend. It might be that Epps' best bet here is to try and force a mistake out of Proctor. Proctor, again, isn't likely to make that mistake too readily. Up to Druids they go, Epps to the outside, still can't find a way through.
But what about Graham Hill Ben? That's the next target, and of course, while Epps is busy attacking like this, he's got to be careful he doesn't allow Jordan Brennan a chance to challenge back at it through Graham Hill Ben. They go wide over the curb. Look, Stapleford in that third place is benefiting now. Proctor holding up Epps, going defensive. Stapleford third, escaping up the road. 3 minutes are on the clock still as Epps dives up the inside into clearways. Job done. He came from a long way back. There was just about the width of the Peugeot, but he's done it, he's gone by. So Mike Epps goes through, really impressive move that, and now he should be able to charge clear and then get on the back of Stapleford for that third place. He's got the time left to do it. Yeah,
he's having to defend though, because Proctor's trying to come back at him, as is his right, of course. He's going to be eager to address the situation. He'll feel that Epps rather mugged him of that fourth position there. Proctor very much left the door wide open, and Epps was only too happy to step right through it. Now Mike's got into a bit of a rhythm now. I think he should be able to get away. A timely move that for Epps, because look who has joined the party. Jack Keithley and Dave Marshall. They just about caught this group of cars, and then Mike Epps gets himself to the front of it and starts to pull away. That's going to be so frustrating for them, but there is still the potential here for Keithley and Marshall to gain more points as well.
And a change for the race lead. Looking at the timing totem pole, Rob Butler has somehow got himself up past Dave Newsham. So there they are. Butler has done it, coming through clearways. He's ahead when it matters, because with 2 minutes and a lap to go. Butler leads. He gets a bootful of Newsham, which unsettles him. Robbie Stapleford is there in third. Mike Epps could win this yet, up towards Druids they come, and Newsham tries to attack for the lead. Stapleford goes round the outside for second. Butler is wide. Newsham is through. There's more contact. Rob Butler is back on the inside line. Is he going to retain the advantage? Yes, he is. Stapleford up the inside line for second place. And look, Epps is with them. So Newsham down to third, about to go down to fourth. And Epps is absolutely flying. He's got third then, and Newsham has gone from first to fourth in just under a lap.
Look at this. Peugeot, Cupra, Peugeot, Hyundai, and Epps is sideways in the Peugeot. Newsham's back up the inside again. This is a battle I don't think that Mike Epps really wants to be involved with, and now he's the one getting hung out to dry. Look at that, side by side for fourth place. Senna Proctor's up the inside of Dave Newsham as well. As for the race lead, Stapleford has a big look at the inside for the second lap in a row. The Peugeot of Rob Butler is sideways at Paddock Hill Bend, and Mike Epps is in the gravel, the race one winner. All of his hard work is undone. He falls right to the back of the top 10 behind all of those he was racing in the first race. But this is not over yet. A minute left on the clock, plus 1 lap, and 7 or 8 drivers all within touching distance of the top step of the podium, and it's getting more and more physical by the lap.
There is this, and possibly time for one more, and then of course the regulation lap. So Rob Butler is up front. Stapleford is now running second. Now Dave Newsham is third, but all of this I think now has to be stamped provisional, doesn't it? Andy Ringland, the clerk of the cause, is going to want to look at some of it as Newsham gets a bit of help from Proctor and gets all crossed up coming out of Clark Curve. So with a pretty couple of Larry laps, I think the order may well have to be looked at post-race. But on track, no question, Butler leads. Right, we will have one more lap at the end of this. Butler versus Stapleford. They are trying to get away as now Jack Keithley goes third on the inside of centre Proctor, and Proctor gets to helping hand. There are more drivers being given a tap and getting sideways coming out of Druids. The net result of which is mayhem at Graham Hill Bend.
Yeah, that's one of the Newshams. Dave, I think, isn't it? Newsham Senior was off the road, so too was Brennan, and that has rather split the pack, hasn't it? It's allowed these top three to get away. The man of the moment is Jack Keithley. He's on for another podium now, having had a really quiet race, sort of flying under the radar, wasn't he, along with Dave Marshall in the first two-thirds of the race. When everything kicked off in front, it's Keithley who's come through into third. Now, he should be quicker than the two in front, but he's only got a lap left to try and do something about them. Rob Butler looking good to hang on to the victory. Behind him, though, it's anyone's guess. The Peugeots are back together here. Marshall ahead of Epps significantly. Like Epps wants that place back. He will be gutted that he's not scoring as many points out of this as it looked like he would do.
I hope the clerk of the course isn't planning on mowing his lawn at the end of this race. I think he might be a bit busy. There'll be a lot to look at, but it is Rob Butler leading from in that second place then. Robbie Stapleford, the Colville man, with the Profile Racing Cupra Leon, and as the cars now make the run up towards the right hand of Clark for the last time, checkered flag should be at the ready. Rob Butler accelerating his way up towards the timing line. Stapleford is right on his tail. Jack Keith